Taking care of business with GTA. We start with you.
Hafa day, everybody. Jason Salas here, and this is Taking Care of Business, our new segment where we share information, literally, with you. Stuff you need to know, stuff that you can take care of your organization, and how you can do business in a very, very smart way. And we are starting off with a very good friend of mine, Andy LaBrunda. He is the Vice President of Strategic Development here at GTA. We are in, Andy, this gorgeous experience center here in the heart of Tamuning. So thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Crazy times these past 2 years, especially for those of us that work in tech, especially for you guys on the infrastructure side. Just to start off with and everything, how has it been supporting just the increase in load of people always being online, now doing like a lot of high bandwidth video and just like imposing, so many constraints on you guys just to make sure that we're online all the time?
Yeah, well, there's an interesting story there in watching the data usage patterns. A lot of what we expected when the COVID lockdown hit was an increase in download and bandwidth there. And we did see small increments month after month occurring as COVID happened. And it grew by about 50% over a 12-month period, which is significantly faster than the typical trending we see. The surprising part, though, was really on the upload, right? There was significantly more video conferencing. And so as a result of all the video conferencing, whereas download grew by 50%, the upload grew by well over 100%.
Also, like kids putting up, YouTube projects, just saying,
all the online streaming,
see what I'm doing
projects,
at home.
Yeah. And so all the video classroom, the Google Classroom, is what we saw a lot of activity and the upload with all of that.
But, kudos to you guys and your team here at GTA because you guys handled everything so beautifully and everything. I've never heard anybody say like, I couldn't get through or, like classrooms maintained, businesses continued to be in operations. People were able to communicate with like friends and family around the world and everything like that and tell them how they were doing even when we weren't able to go outside or actually see them face to face. Yeah,
well, we have a team that's there just to monitor contention and always stay ahead of it. So we're always watching trending both on upload and download and staying 2 steps ahead to make sure that our customers always have the bandwidth that they need.
Very nice. Well, it is Lenten season, everybody. Make sure to get an Easter basket for anybody you know in tech that works in infrastructure because those guys and women are working very, very hard. So shout out to all you guys in infrastructure. Now, that being the case, Andy, cybersecurity is always a big, even before the pandemic. Cybersecurity, these are things that keep people like you up at night, thinking about like how can bad actors intrude on a particular network or get into a system or exploit things and everything. And probably more so these days because of the situation that's going on in Ukraine with the conflict and everything. So maybe give us a little bit of an introduction of why is cybersecurity important at all different levels from, families all the way up to big companies like your own?
Yeah, great question. And a lot of it has to do with people's digital footprint and their exposure to the internet, right? And just as the fact that we're becoming more and more citizens of the internet means that we're using more applications, right? You mentioned it, like just in terms of the number of chat applications. Like when I look at it, I got Signal and WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and Vibe and all of these. These are all attack vectors that are potential opportunities for threat actors to come in and find opportunities to exploit you. Having multiple email addresses is the same thing. And so there's more and more opportunities for cyber vulnerabilities. As you create this larger digital footprint of yourself online, you create more exposure points and opportunities to do social engineering.
You're leaving more of a surface area that people can go in and actually take advantage of you.
Exactly. And so, and then part 2 of that is that now that you have this information, they're getting weaponized in a lot more sophisticated ways than previous, right? And so the types of exploits that come out, Log4j is a recent one that came out in December. You're probably familiar with that one. So that one is a good example because in the history of types of exploits that have occurred, like the moment the exploit was announced and the patch was available, like people started scanning the network and we could observe it from within GTA and see these exploits being observed and looked for across our network. And so it's spread like wildfire literally in these cases. Like we can see that when exploits become available, they spread much, much faster than they ever did before.
And now everybody's connected across multiple devices, multiple screens. And again, you're just giving people more of a surface area to scan. So say if, for old school hackers like you and I, hackers being a good word, by the way, everybody, don't freak out there. Don't cancel Andy and I. Like, we're hackers for good. We're both white hat, right?
That's right.
But when we were younger, like when we were going to UOG and everything, there would be cyber pranks, right? The attacks that these nefarious organizations or individuals do now are a lot more elaborate, a lot more complex, and substantially more damaging and everything.
Exactly. Like cyber pranks in the olden days, it was what I would call script kiddies, right? They live in their mother's basement, they download some software, maybe Python, and then they choose an IP range and they scan it and they look for vulnerabilities. And those are mostly innocuous, right? Those guys are not really or girls are the ones that could scan the internet and they're just script kiddies. And that's not the ones I'm afraid of. The scenarios that worry me the most are the people that they grow out of their mother's house, right? They get married, they have kids, they get a PhD. And then the economic times of COVID or the embargoes on Ukraine and Russia, and now they're sitting there unemployed with their PhD in computer engineering, no longer in their mom's basement, but now they have a mortgage they have to pay in 3 weeks. And they are looking for targets to monetize on how are they going to get the money to pay the rent.
There's nothing in the world worse than a fool with a cause.
Right. And so those are the ones that worry me, not the script kiddie in the basement. And so they've matured and weaponized themselves in a way that is a lot more of a threat now. And the information footprint, like we were talking about with attack vectors, there's a lot of attack vectors out there for all of us.
Now, let's take it up a notch a little bit, Andy, because even for maybe some slightly experienced IT people out there, they say, okay, well, I know all my workstations at work, everybody's got some sort of antivirus on there. We run malware software, like across the network, so we should be okay. And like I turn on my firewall, and in the olden days, that used to be enough. Is that still acceptable today?
No. What they have is this term called defense in depth, right? And it's analogous to like how you would build a castle that's about to be under siege. Right. And so first you mount the pikes and you dig the pits, right? And you want to slow their progress. And then you make sure the moat is full because the army's over there and they're coming. So you fill the moat and you got some alligators, throw those in there too, right? And you got this tall wall and you mount some archers on the top, right? And so you have all these defensive perimeters that you put up. And it's the exact same thing that you would do in cybersecurity. Like you mentioned, you'd have a next generation firewall right at the edge. GTA has something called the MTSB. It's a multi-threat security bundle. And so with that, we offer this next generation security package. And next generation means that just like antivirus, how you get new signatures that are getting updates on an hourly basis, these are doing the same thing. So it's looking for cyber resiliency and receiving updates every hour to make sure you've got this secure perimeter. But still, that's not enough, right? Once you get through that, then you need to have intrusion protection systems, right? And so you have IPS right behind it. And then beyond that, you need to start protecting your computers. Protecting the computers with antivirus, and they should have their own localized firewalls also turned on. And then beyond that,
Windows Defender and whatnot.
Actually, Windows Defender is a very good product.
I know a lot of people that hate on Windows Defender. Windows Defender has always been like a pretty solid
really
product.
Good, right? Yeah. I recommend that over the commercial off-the-shelf McAfee's and Norton ones that they have. The Windows Defender is every bit as good as those other.
Yeah, you're right. Well, like when it first came out, like around Windows Vista, it was kind of like a little bit sus, but it's actually gotten quite sophisticated.
It's really good now.
Yeah. Okay. Now this product you were talking about that GTA offers.
Yeah, MTSB.
Yeah. Thank you. Is that applicable to what types of companies at what scale and scope? And is this on-prem or remotely hosted?
It's a multi-threat security bundle, and it works well for small, medium, and large business.
Okay.
And
across
so
the board.
and it will do of this multi-layered defense. It's designed to protect the perimeter, so it's the furthest out. All packets that are coming into your network. This is the boundary between your local area network and the rest of the world, right? And so there's scenarios there where you might not be very good at patching your computers, right? And in that scenario, this device right at the edge will protect your computers and your network anyways. I still want to encourage people to be vigilant in terms of monitoring email and what they click on and all of that. But this will protect computers. It will filter emails. It does intrusion protection. And it has a lot of the security layers that we were just talking about using that castle metaphor. So of the 5, it represents 4 of them, right? It does antivirus, it does email, it does next generation firewall, and it does intrusion protection.
Now, I got to ask you, because when you were talking about what you recommend, because you basically, like as we say in the business, you eat your own dog food, right? You work here, you're an executive, and you're a VP of the company. But when you go home, you're an internet user too, so you want to make sure your own gear is secured. You were mentioning like McAfee, Norton with the antiviruses and everything. Some people have said that, with the situation going on with Russia, that because by association, Kaspersky, they're kind of like on the fence and they're like, should I still trust that company to do stuff? Like in your opinion and from what you've read, is that still like a viable option for people for optimum security?
No.
Okay.
From what I've read and what I've seen, I would not recommend them. And this is in watching like Russia's response to some of the cyber warfare that they're positioning themselves. What I mean by that is they are no longer applying Microsoft patches because they're looking at Microsoft as a potential threat vector, right? And so if they're thinking that far ahead, then they must be thinking outward too. Like maybe we could embed Kaspersky labs and infect or use that as a Trojan deployment mechanism too. And so the fact that they're already trying to put a defensive perimeter against third-party software like Microsoft makes me think they're also going to look at how they can go on the offensive as well.
Well, if I trust him, everybody, like with his opinion, I mean, I got the man right here. So, you guys should trust him too. So even if you can't pronounce Kaspersky, that probably indicates you might want to think twice. Henry.
Thank you.
Okay. So interestingly enough, how do people actually get into cybersecurity, and what kind of career opportunities do you have here at GTA for people that want to say, I studied computer science like you did at UOG, or, like I've always been into IT, I've set up my own networks and everything, but I want to make my contribution to technology, making sure that people are as safe as possible. I want to lock down networks. I want to make sure that people can be online and not have to worry about, getting broken into.
Right.
Digital law enforcement, basically.
Exactly. And there's usually two paths that I see, and they both have a foundation of computer science to start with. That you can't jump into security unless you have that foundation, right? You need to know about networks and computers and operating systems, and you got to have some programming experience and some operating system and software architecture experience. So once you have those foundations, then you can start to look at the ways that you would apply security and process and policy. There's two different avenues that people take. I generally see is they'll pursue like a master's degree in security, right? And so I would say that it's not necessarily a bachelor's, but it's a more experience. You need to have that computer science foundation and then go for the master's in information security. And then the other path is to go through the certification approach, right? Get the CISSP. And get the security, start with Security Plus and then work your way up to CISSP.
Andy, you were talking about like, if you are a cybersecurity professional, and people out there are very, very good at this kind of thing, right? You were talking about policy too. So it's not just installing and configuring software. It's not just, plugging in some rack-mounted device and everything. That's very, very necessary also, but it comes to a lot of social engineering as well as the technical engineering. So making sure that your staff is aware and, they don't do things like, write down your password on a Post-it and, leave it on their cubicle and everything. So talk about like what human processes organizations should be doing to make sure that they're
That's a great point, because you're only as strong as your weakest link, and your employees are often the weakest link. Social engineering is a very real risk. And when we talk about digital footprints, that's the attack vector, is going for the employees themselves. What we have is scenarios where somebody might post Instagram pictures while they're on vacation, and then their house gets broken into, right? And so those types of scenarios are very real. Another one that might be happening is like Lola sends you a text message over Facebook and says, "Hey, please send me an Amazon gift card for my diabetes medicine." Right? And it's an impersonation attack, right? It's not Lola. She's not asking for anything. And it's a hacker that just found her username password and is now trying to use it to exploit you. And so social engineering is, with a large digital footprint, social engineering is very easy.
I may or may have not over the years gotten emails from a member of the Nigerian aristocracy, like asking for my social security number and, access to my life savings. So
those are the easy, obvious ones, right? The harder ones are when you're posting pictures online and then they cater it to that, right? You take a picture of your plane ticket and now you get a message from United saying, "Please reset your United OnePass miles," right? And it never originated from United. Now these are hackers that are looking at your picture saying, "I know you're flying from this place to this place on this flight," and it's easy to create a phishing attempt based on the information that you put online. Okay,
so final question as we wrap up. That's a really good point because you brought up phishing. As a cybersecurity professional, as someone with what do you got, like 30 years almost in IT?
Yeah.
Where do you stand? I mean, phishing is generally no good, and they're trying to get people to click on, like bad links and install software on their system. Where do you stand on like spam though? Because some people say it as mildly annoying, other people say it's maybe clever or crass marketing, depending on your perspective, and other people say like it can be pretty dangerous. So when it comes to running your network and everything like that, how much do you rely on effective tools and human processes again to minimize spam?
We don't have human processes to minimize the spam. We use fully automated tools. And we've got multiple layers of filtering that goes through. And we want to get rid of as much spam as possible before it reaches the inbox, because it decreases the productivity of our employees, right? We don't want them to waste time and cycles getting emails on products that are of no interest to us. So we want to be the proactive solicitor, not receive solicitations. And so we block out spam wherever we possibly can.
Very nice. So it may not melt down the cores of your computer and everything, but it may take you 5 seconds per email multiplied at the end of the month. So you've just wasted like 10 minutes of what should be productivity time.
Right.
All right. So Andy, it has always been a pleasure, my friend. So good to see you, man. We got to do this some more. And thank you for having us again at the beautiful Experience Center.
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to give you the final word. What is, in one sentence, sum up what people should know about cybersecurity across the board?
Okay. Can I use 5 sentences, maybe 6?
Sure. Okay, a paragraph.
Well,
we go big here at GTA.
Good cybersecurity posture. It's should be prescriptive. Like when you go to a doctor and they look at like your history and your lifestyle and your genetics, and they come up with a prescription that works for you, based on your person, based on you. And so the same thing goes with security. There are a few universal principles. For example, in the medical, it would be always sleep and always exercise. In the case of GTA and cybersecurity, it's always have a strong next generation firewall at the edge and always have strong backups, right? And so the philosophies work, but there needs to be some customization there too. And so you need to understand your security posture, where you're strong and where you're weak. And then it would be a customized, catered package to the small businesses and small, medium, and large businesses based on where they are in their security posture assessment.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Andy. We appreciate it. You know, we sit here, we're two old school tech guys, you know, like talking. His game is really, really serious. And if you are a customer of GTA's or you are not yet, please become one, because Andy and his team, they're going to have your back to make sure that you guys stay safe online. Right. Andy, thanks again, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. That's Taking Care of Business, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Taking care of business with GTA. We start with you.